Coming to you from 6,224 feet in Castle Rock, Colorado.
This is Inside Castle Rock.
I'm Chris Tuchillo, hospitality trainer, leadership and presentation coach, and a local resident the past 2 years.
I'm Brian Cowdrey, a professional real estate agent, and I've lived in town for over a decade.
Check out our latest episode as we welcome you inside Castle Rock. Welcome to episode 5 of Inside Castle Rock. We are really pumped to be joined by our friend Michael Connors, who we know not only through the local community, but also through Dads of Castle Rock, through his company, which we're going to hear a little bit more about in today's episode, but also through a great bi-monthly program that we attend called Connecting Over Coffee. So, Michael, welcome to Inside Castle Rock.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah,
So excited to have you.
on here. Yeah, we're very timely because you got a lot of things going on this time of year, right?
This is the busiest time of the year for us.
Yeah.
Business is kicking off. Nonprofits in our busiest season with events and everything going on. And the weather has finally got nice enough where people want to go outside and train a dog. So it gets busy.
For sure.
Now, speaking of not only being busy, but training a dog, we forgot to introduce a guest.
Oh, that's right.
We forgot to introduce a guest. Can you tell us who's hiding under your chair?
So this is Gunner. Gunner is a 6-year-old golden retriever, and he's been trained both for service work for me, as well as he's actually a therapy dog ambassador as well. He's worked multiple schools, events for veterans, VAs, and he's actually worked in response to 2 school shootings in Colorado.
Oh, no way.
In his 6-year life.
Wow.
Yeah, busy little life.
Started.
Yeah, he's busy.
I have to say, as we were setting up, one of the things that I noticed was not only is he just like absolutely adorable, but extremely well trained. Obviously, your commands and the commands that I heard you giving Gunner were not the normal commands of like sit, stay. You'd say things like under the chair, and he responded to that as if you were talking to like a better than my 6-year-old daughter would.
Say, right?
No offense to me and my wife, but like really well responded to a lot of the specific commands you gave.
He's had a lot of training over his lifespan. I mean, really, from a training perspective, training never ends.
Yeah.
So from the time he was 9 weeks old to the time that he's now 6.5, he works every day. You learn every day. And so really, the amount of training that Gunner now holds, he holds a value of almost $50,000 worth of training and ability. So
that's incredible.
He should be pretty responsive at this point.
He really
He's in trouble. But
I did notice he didn't have the little barrel under his neck, like in case I need a Manhattan. But other than that, he seems perfectly outfitted.
For sure.
He seems ready to go.
That's coming later. That's next year. You're going to train on that, right?
Now, I was going to ask the question, but I can actually read it off your shirt. So P.A.W.S, K9-PAWS, stands for Pups Assisting Warriors to Succeed.
Yes, it does.
We want to get into the charity and the nonprofit of what you do and that. But tell us a little bit about just kind of your story and your background, in a couple of minutes.
So I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. I spent my entire childhood there. At 18, I went straight into the Army. I served for 10.5 years, 2 deployments overseas. The last deployment resulted in some medical issues, and I was medically evacuated back to the United States. I spent 18 months as a patient at Walter Reed in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And I was medically retired in 2016. When I got medically retired, I was looking for a new purpose. Everybody when they get out, the number one thing we hear, I need purpose. I lost my purpose. So for us, I needed that too.
Not to interrupt you, but I got to imagine that's a big transition difference from like everything you've ever worked for. And now all of a sudden it's completely
100%.
Gone, right?
100%.
Yeah.
You focus everything in your life on this one thing. And then all of a sudden you can't do it anymore. And you're told you can't do it anymore. And when that goes away, you need a new purpose. You need a new direction. And for me, I found training service animals to be that direction. It not only is a way for me to still serve because I'm helping other veterans in the way that can work, but it's also created new resources for myself at the same time to work through a lot of the traumas and the things that have come through in my own injury past from the military.
Sure. So now, how did you discover training dogs as your new purpose? Like,
that wasn't part of my high school curriculum.
Yeah.
So it was actually an occupational therapy program at Walter Reed. And there was a very nice woman who was working there. And every day she would come into my room and tell me, pet the dog. And for the first 3 months of being in the hospital, I was very much so shut down. I didn't want to deal with anybody you're telling me my career is over. In my eyes, my life is over.
Sure.
I told her to get out of my room every single day for 90 days.
Gotcha.
After about 90 days, she came into the room and she told me, I'm not going to leave until you touch the dog.
So you didn't touch the dog at all the first 90 days?
Not at all.
I was going to ask, like,
Yeah.
were you like intermittently? Okay, no
Not
pet.
at all.
Like not happening.
She finally came in. I pet the dog and she said, you happy now? Please leave. That was the first night that I slept more than 2 hours
You're
in the hospital.
kidding.
So
Wow.
I woke up the next day and I looked at the nurse. I said, go find me the chick with the dog. And she came in and she just looked at me and laughed and she said, worked, didn't it? And I said, I hate you, but I have questions. And so I learned about the program and how it works. And basically it was an occupational therapy where veterans in recovery got to learn how to train service dogs that would ultimately go to other veterans.
Wow.
So it was never going to be your dog, but it was
Okay.
working the dogs in preparation to go to someone else.
Interesting.
And overdoing it for the 6-month program, I realized the benefits it was giving me. And I realized the motivation and the purpose I was getting and still serving and helping someone else.
Yeah.
So when my program ended at that 6-month mark, I still had another 9 months in the hospital.
Gotcha.
And I graduated the program and I walked into the office and she looked at me and she said, you're not leaving, are you? I said, nope, you need to find a way to make this
Need to
work.
pet another dog.
And they ultimately created an internship for me to keep doing it.
Okay.
And I went through and worked for that nonprofit for the next 9 months, doing their dogs and working with them.
Okay.
And ultimately went to school at the same time to get certified for dog training and get the education side. And when I was medically retired, I was out for less than 30 days before I opened my first business saying, I'm a dog trainer and this is what I'm going to do. I worked for a couple other nonprofits, and ultimately in 2021, I realized there's a lot of red tape that a lot of organizations go through, governmental oversight, little things that don't need to be there. So I took the benefits of what they were all doing right. And I said, I'm going to fix all the things you're doing wrong, and I'm going to create my own organization. And that's where P.A.W.S was born.
Wow. That's like the best summary, but just so like incredible. The whole thing.
So much was encompassed in that summary.
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious, obviously, right, what you're doing with the dogs, I mean, it's teaching, right? It's education.
It is.
People may look at it differently in that you're not educating little kids, but you're educating dogs. Arguably could be harder, maybe easier.
I think it's
depends on the kid.
Depends on the kid.
What's the correlations that you found in some of the leadership and the education that you were doing for, you know, other soldiers when you were in the military? And did that translate into what you were doing now as an educator for animals?
It does translate because we had benefits of the same training styles, communication styles. You know, in the military, it's very mission oriented. You need to get things done when they need to be done.
Gotcha.
When it comes to the dogs, it's very similar in that I don't have endless amount of time to spend on things.
Yeah.
Because the dog's ability to focus times out at some point. I can't expect Gunner here to be like, I'm going to go for 12 hours and learn the entire time.
Right.
Right.
Makes sense.
After 3-4 hours, he's like, I'm bored. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore.
Gotcha.
So we focus the dogs in those windows of time. And one of the biggest factors that came out of the military side, but also to the dogs, is the communication style. I tell every person that we do this, 90% of my job isn't the dog, it's you. Because I need to teach you what to do.
Yeah.
10% is just making him do his job.
Right.
90% is teaching you how to use the dog, how to have you communicate to the dog.
Gotcha.
Because if I put $25,000 into this dog and hand it to you as a veteran and say, okay, this dog is going to change your life, if I don't teach you how, I didn't do you any service.
Right.
I need to actually make your life function.
It's like handing a teenager a car without ever training them how to use it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or like a podcaster that doesn't know how to use their app.
That's right.
Well,
I mean, who would do that?
I only know one.
Only one. There's one guy. One guy I can think of. But I love him to death.
We use that analogy all the time with the car.
You make fun of Brian too, and you're
similar, but in a different aspect. No, we use the analogy where if I said, okay, if I gave you the keys to my truck and I never explained to you what the lines in the road mean, you're going to get into trouble.
Right.
But
Totally
if I give you the keys and I say you can't cross the double yellows or the solid white, I gave you some boundaries, and all of a sudden, all you have to do is not hit the car in front of you. Your odds for success went up.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the same thing with the dogs. If I give them so much freedom that they can just do what they want, they have too many opportunities to make mistakes.
And they will. They'll do whatever
But
they
if
want.
I create some boundaries and say, here's your left parameter and your right parameter, and this is where I want you, and this is where I want your focus and how you're doing things, the dogs have a lot higher success, and ultimately the veterans do as well.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Have you experienced with the dogs? I've never asked this before, and I'm really curious about it. do the dogs get a level of satisfaction out of what they're doing? Because obviously you're helping the veterans, but in a way, I mean, you're spending all this time beforehand getting the dogs ready to do this job, and right, people are made to work.
Right.
Do you find the dogs get satisfaction of what they're doing?
1,000%. When we go through and we select dogs for service work, I am very specific about the temperament of the dog. So not every dog is meant to do this. Ultimately, it's like 1% of dogs could ultimately do this.
Even in the same breed,
Right.
things
If
like
the
that.
breed means nothing. And that's where
Okay.
it really comes in is a lot of your bigger organizations that do service work, it's labs, Goldens, things they breed for service production. You know what you're getting. It's
Like
very
factory
purpose bred.
almost.
It is very
Yeah.
bred. And with us, what makes us different is I use shelter and rescue dogs. So I'm taking dogs where I have no idea what your breed is. I have no idea what your background is.
Rehabbing them, huh?
And I'm going to find the dog based on the temperament
Okay.
to ultimately say, this is what the right dog for the right person is.
Interesting.
And then we build on that. But we don't force the dogs to do this. We want the dogs that want to do this.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, for an example, Gunner being a golden retriever, he's very good at retrieving. He can do everything from getting my phone, my keys, my wallet, all by name. He can go get me water. He could get me a beer out of the fridge at the end of the day if I wanted him to.
That is amazing.
So there's a lot of things.
No, you can't. She's useless. I'm gonna go and work on that.
He can do all those things, but ultimately, like my German Shepherd, he's really good at the PTSD cues and how to create some protective positioning, how to create some boundaries, give you some space, grounding pressure. He's not putting things in his mouth. It's not what he's meant for. He's just that dog where it wasn't in his realm of, I'm going to tolerate that. So we found a purpose for what he was based on what his skill set was.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So if you are the veteran, I need to say, what do you need in advance?
Gotcha.
And I base what dog you get on that.
So it's really intentional.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's 100% intentional based on the dog's ability to what your needs may be.
Okay. Gotcha.
So this is a weird parallel, but we adopted a cat about a year ago, and I realized cats and dogs are very different. But in that, my wife was going to the Dumb Friends League to find this cat, and I was traveling on the trip when she was thinking about doing it. Kind of messaging back and forth, and she's like, I found these cats. She's like, but I just don't know if they're the right fit for Emma, for our daughter. Because she's like, I'm not really getting the cat for me, for herself. She said, I don't mind if the cat likes me. I'd like that to happen. She's like, but I really want it to be the right temperament. And she knocked it out of the park. But I'd never thought about selecting an animal that way, kind of based on their temperament. It's more like, okay, I want a cute animal.
Right.
It's, I want a golden or this or that or a breed, right? I don't think of cats so much.
Shed or don't shed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We originally looked at cats based on breed, and then we're like, we're not going to find that at the Dumb Friends League, so we're going to go. And my wife said, no, I think temperament's the way to go. So interesting to hear that that's how you actually are selecting the dogs for the veterans based on temperament, not based on
100%.
what they're looking for from a style of dog. If that's
and we see the style side on my business side of things, where we'll train anyone's dog for anything.
Okay.
We see that all the time where people see like, I want this dog because I saw it in a movie, or I want this dog because it looks cool, or I want this standard, golden retriever or the doodle nowadays.
Doodles are everything.
No request for Cujo?
No, I have a couple, but
do you really?
But no, really what we get a lot is people see something and they're like, I want the image. I want what it looks like.
Yeah.
So a couple years ago, there was a movie that came out starring Channing Tatum called Dog. And it was about a veteran where he has the same military traumas and he's got to transport this Belgian Malinois back and forth. And a lot of people saw that movie and said, I'm going to go get a Belgian Malinois. 99% of the human population should never touch a Belgian Malinois.
Gotcha.
That is the highest drive, motivation, athletic dog that exists. And that is not a pet. It's not a couch potato. That is a dog that needs to work.
Needs to do
needs something to do so. And if you don't do that, you get Cujo. It's not how it works.
Right.
So in our realm, we see a lot of those Malinois now where it's like shepherds in that as well. People get them because of the look. And 3 months later, they're like, I screwed up. I can't handle this dog. And then we have to come in from a behavioral standpoint and basically explain to them, you did screw up. That's not the right dog for what you wanted.
Yeah.
But now you have this and you have to make the best of it and find a way to adapt your lifestyle to it.
Gotcha.
And when it comes to the service dogs, we avoid a lot of those issues by saying, I want the right temperament. So if I get a shepherd or a Malinois that's service work, it's on the lower drive spectrum of where they can float.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the dog's job is to lay there and be quiet until it's time to do something.
Yeah.
And that's why, you saw Gunner during setup, he was at a table all the way over here, off leash, underneath the table, for 45 minutes and
Phenomenal.
he won't move.
And another dog walked right by
When
him.
that tiny dog
Yeah.
came in, like his head lifted,
Yeah.
and you were totally like dialed in on him, and you gave him one command, and he was like, "Okay, I guess
All
that's
right.
not. I guess that's
He
not
gave it
my
up.
scope."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. Right.
And that's
I
how
wish
it's
we
supposed to be.
responded so well to that stuff. Takes me at least 2 commands.
Yeah,
At least 2 commands.
I would say kids,
Or
it's
3.
typically 2. Adults, it's 2 to 3.
Yeah.
The dogs, it can get there in 1.
That's awesome.
Fascinating.
Do you ever help somebody if they say, hey, we haven't got a dog yet, but we are looking for a dog
100%.
that does these things? So they can come to you and be like, you tell
Absolutely.
me what breed I need.
Absolutely.
be
We do
actually
it all the time on the
awesome.
business side where
Yeah.
it's you tell me what you're looking for, what your lifestyle looks like, and then I will make recommendations based on that. And at the same time, on the nonprofit side, like if you're the veteran and you go through the application and the interview and everything that goes into that, I'm going to ask you, what do you like? What do you don't like in dog, image,
Sure.
temperament, etc. But you don't get to pick
Okay.
because the choice is based on us finding the right dog for you, the right temperament.
Well,
for
you're
you.
around these dogs all day, every
Right.
day. So you're clearly the expert.
And with them coming out of shelters and rescues, you're probably not getting a purebred German Shepherd or a
Right.
purebred Doodle. You're probably getting something that, if you like Shepherd tendencies and the image, I can find a mix in there that has that. But I'm not going to go spend $4,000 on a puppy that is going to make your life harder
Yeah.
on the front end when the goal was to make your life easier through the dog.
Right.
Right?
Right.
If you come to me and say, I need a service animal, typically most of our veterans, you don't want to be in public. You don't want to be at crowds. And
Sure.
your frustration levels are typically pretty high. Your stress levels are high. Giving you something that requires the most patience other than a human child is probably not the way to start
Right.
you out.
Yeah,
Giving you
that's not
something
gonna
that
help.
has a foundation and say, now you just have to learn together is the better route to go.
Totally. Yeah. Well, you just avoid so many pitfalls, I would imagine,
Absolutely.
and frustrations, and probably causing other types of issues, trauma or things like that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just get rid of all that and be proactive on it.
And we do find that image plays a factor. So,
Sure.
if
You don't want to,
if I have
I can see that.
a veteran who doesn't want to be approached by people, giving them a gunner here where he's like this derpy golden retriever who's just happy-go-lucky,
He's cute.
he's going to attract attention.
Yeah.
It's probably not the way that I would go with that.
Right.
We had a veteran last year, very small female, very intimidated with crowds and people coming up to her. She got a Rottweiler mix. And that was just, we looked at the right temperament and then I considered the look of the dog. That dog is the biggest baby that exists, but his look
Nobody
is,
wants to come up to it.
you don't want to meet me.
Yeah.
And so she
I mean, I
doesn't
wouldn't.
have those people
Yeah.
come up and be like, what's your dog's name? Can I talk
Right.
to your dog? Can I pet your dog? She doesn't get that. So it's alleviated a lot of the stressors just by the image of the dog, even though he's the sweetest thing in the world. We just consider those factors when we make the choices.
Right.
I think a Rottweiler would be what you would want because you're so intimidating, it would match your personality so much, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
When we've traveled around, our daughter's very friendly, Emma, and so when she was little, she loves animals, and she would always try to approach dogs from the back.
Yep.
And she'd be like, because she's like running up on a dog, she'd be like 3 or
right.
4, and she'd want to grab the tail. So we're like, that's not how you approach a dog. You have to ask the owner's permission before you do it.
Right.
But Emma doesn't really look at a dog of any size or stature and be like, that dog's not friendly. So we've had to kind of teach her, it doesn't make a difference what the dog looks like. The owner gets the say in that.
Right.
So she'll scooch around the dog to the owner and be like, excuse me, can I pet your dog? And I love when dog owners say, our dog's not that friendly.
Absolutely.
And then you'll see Emma go, oh. And she'll be like, can I pet him anyway? And they're like, I really wouldn't recommend it. And then we're like, Emma, we're going to respect what the owner says.
Yeah.
But I love that candor as opposed to like, well, if the dog bites your kid like you asked for it,
Right.
like they have to kind of be in tune with that. And we've taught her to ask those questions.
100%.
And we use the same tactics. We encourage our clients to not have their dogs pet by the public on the business side.
Okay.
Because there's a difference in socialization, what people assume that means.
Sure.
If you say my dog is social, my dog is friendly, realistically, that mindset is my dog should be able to go play with other dogs, people, etc. It's not what socialization means. Socialization in a dog realm means I can look at that other dog and be like, doesn't matter. What would you like me to do? You're my handler. It's more about exposure than it is about being friendly. And yeah, our dogs are friendly, but we tell everyone if a dog has a vest on, you're supposed to ignore it in general anyway, right? And honestly, we find that adults are the worst about this.
I bet. Yeah.
Because kids are growing up in an era where they're seeing it in
And they're being
schools, they're
taught.
learning,
Right.
and they understand that.
Yeah.
The amount of times that I've had a 7-year-old tell mommy, no, you shouldn't talk to that dog in a Target. thank you, child, because now I don't need to correct your parent in public. And
Isn't that fantastic? I love that.
because the kids love it.
Right.
And so we try and just keep that standard. If it's wearing
Yeah.
a vest, it's off limits unless someone tells you otherwise.
Yeah,
Sure.
awareness is an important part about it. We've talked a little bit about when you started. You said it was 2021 that you started K9-PAWS.
Yep.
Did you know before you started your business, how long did you know that you wanted to own a business or be a small business owner?
Honestly, I never did. Ironically, when I created Colorado Canine Company in 2016, which is my business side of things, it was more of a, I'm going to help supplement the bills and do some things. It was always meant to be, I'm self-employed and I'm doing what I love. It
Gotcha.
wasn't supposed to be a business. Unfortunately, I chose to move to the state that has the most dog-friendly environments in the world, and the business took off dramatically faster than I ever could have imagined.
Gotcha.
And now Colorado Canine, I mean, we're so busy that I operate on a wait list because I have 65 active clients that need to be seen every 2 weeks.
Holy cow.
So on the business side, it's just kind of gotten there. I would say from the nonprofit, I've always known since I got out in 2016, this was going to be where I spent my time. This was
Gotcha.
the passion project. This is what matters. So I went through that mindset. And that's why I worked for a few other nonprofits first.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get a feel of how do the bigger organizations do it. I don't want just one input. I want 3,
Sure.
4. And after doing that, then I realized you all do things a little differently.
Mhm.
There's some things that's really beneficial, but you all screw up in certain areas. There's too much
Yeah.
red tape. It's too much governmental oversight. There's too many things you jump through as far as red hoops and red tape.
Too many people have to approve things.
Right.
And,
And
yeah.
that's one of the
Have to
reasons
say.
I don't want to do it that way. And we invented Pause the way we did is because of the fact I worked for a bigger organization where their wait list was 4 years long.
Yeah.
And if you're a disabled veteran coming to me and saying, I need help, if I told you, sure, I'll help you in 4 years, that's basically me saying you won't be here when I'm able to help you.
Right. Sure.
We all know the suicide rate is through the roof. Everyone's
Yeah.
heard 22 a day.
Mhm.
The closer, it's honestly 40 right now in our country. We need to be better. So I created Pause in a template where 3 months, 6 months max, there's a dog in your hands.
Wow.
So
That's incredible.
you're not waiting an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Now, in order to do that, obviously, there's fundraising and things that have to happen for us to be able to meet the needs that go into that.
Sure.
But that's one of the things that makes us different. And honestly, the other was I didn't believe that the CEO needed a 6-figure salary to sit at the desk as a nonprofit.
Right.
The bigger organizations pay them.
Yeah.
And yeah, at some point, the nonprofit is designed to be functional where administrative costs can be covered. But right now, we're an entirely volunteer organization. Everything is donated. The time that
Everything
the
comes
board
in,
puts
goes right
in,
back
that I
out.
put in, every penny in is a penny out. We don't
That's
get
amazing.
anything. And that's how it's designed to be.
Gotcha. That's phenomenal.
A lot of integrity in organizations like that.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can tell because if you look at a nonprofit's 990, you'll know where their money goes.
Sure.
And we tell people, if you're questioning where to donate your money at the end of the year or where to make your tax write-offs, look at their 990.
Yeah.
Figure out what they do with their money. And you'll get a really clear video and image of what that is. Your really big organizations. I mean, there's one veteran organization that everyone has heard of. They are the biggest in the United States. It's called Wounded Warrior Project.
Mhm.
Everyone's heard of them.
Yeah.
If you look at their 990, they're at like 12% of what comes in goes actually back out, and the rest is paying administrative.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
not acceptable in
Right.
my eyes.
Right.
So we encourage people to look at your smaller local nonprofits that are actually putting the money back out
Sure.
in order to help the right causes.
Yeah.
I know you have a big event coming up, which is the Ruck March that you do. So a couple of things. Can you give us, what's the date? What are the details? And how can people support that?
Absolutely. So this event is our 5th annual year of doing this. Every year it's gotten a little bit longer, a little bit shorter time. Somehow it always gets harder for me, but not for
Anybody else.
organization.
Make sure as it gets harder for you, that it's harder to write that check because the
Yes.
check should get a little bigger as well.
Yeah.
They are. So this being our 5th year, it'll be on May 21st. We will step off from Red Rocks at sunrise. And in day 1, we will walk all the way to Castle Rock to where we are today at Bucket List
one day.
Tavern in one day.
Okay.
And we will have a checkpoint party that night. We're actually going to have a party and hang out, and we'll have raffles and auction items and things that are going on here
awesome.
with specials. And then on day 2, on the 22nd, we'll walk from Castle Rock out through Sedalia down to Decker's Divide, all the way down Woodland Park. We're going to end in Manitou Springs at Leg Brewery Company, have a party there. Do the same thing.
Gotcha.
The 3rd day, we'll come up through Colorado Springs, Monument, Palmer Lake, Larkspur, and we will not have a party that night. We're going to do a we're going to do kind of like a gathering for the participants, and their kids are going to get to come out. We're going to stay at Jellystone and let everybody have one night to recuperate before we come into Castle Rock on the last morning.
Oh, gotcha.
And we'll
That's
come
super
in
cool.
through Larkspur, Castle Rock, and we'll end at 105 West on Saturday, May 24th.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Okay, so tell us who's going to be traveling with you and doing this whole big.
I heard about somebody that was going, actually. I found out about a week or two ago.
Yeah?
Yeah, just somebody that we know through our
Oh,
group.
nice.
Yeah.
So there's a couple that you're going to know names right off the bat. So realistically, the route last year was 105 miles. This year it's 165 miles.
Jeez.
8,400 feet in elevation gain. But we intentionally picked this route because it's prettier. It's nicer to look at. In past years, we're walking down 83 or on the side of a highway, and we're jumping guardrails, trying not to get clipped by 18-wheelers.
Sure.
And it's not safe, but it wasn't smart either.
Right.
And so we wanted to pick something that was at least more visually appealing for us while we went and did it.
Totally.
So this year we actually have 5 full-time participants.
Okay.
So it'll be myself, Josh Henkels, Wade Lancaster, Taylor Ratliff, and Craig Kingery.
Oh, nice.
We will be the ones pursuing the entire mission.
Now, how did they apply for this? Volunteered? How did they get selected?
So Josh,
Their wife signed them up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want a few days by myself. Can you please go hike?
Josh did it with us last year.
Okay.
He's on our board. He's very
nice.
involved, and he sees the mission behind it, in how this can ultimately be beneficial.
Yeah.
And so the motivation and the passion is there.
That's awesome.
Wade Lancaster is also on our board. He's been on our board for several years and helping in the community and getting the word out there about what we do.
Nice.
This year being the longest it's ever been, and we have plans to change the format of the event in the future. He's asked to be a participant and not just like, I'll set up at the finale.
Gotcha.
So we said, no problem, you're in. In past years, Craig Kingery has done a day with us.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Things like
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And so we saw that, and we wanted it to be where, hey, if you're willing to put in the work and be a part of it, let's do this.
That's super.
So he will be joining us. And Taylor this year has actually, he volunteered. He reached out and he said, look, I know I'm not a veteran. I know it's a little different. I'm not on the board. But honestly, this has been pulling at my heart for the last 3 years of coming to this.
That's cool.
I'm willing to break myself and make sure I keep up. Would you guys be okay? And we're like, brother, join the team. Let's go.
That's
Cleaning every window he sees along the way. It's like the whole corridor is going to just be gorgeous.
and everybody's sunglasses throughout. Yeah, just gonna like squeegee them off.
Everybody's got pit vipers and clean windows. Oh man, we love
You know
Taylor.
a handful of these guys that are coming out and doing this.
Well, Taylor did our
really good,
logo for this podcast.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, we love Taylor.
And
He's
Taylor's actually a sponsor of the event. He's going to be working on some shirts and some stuff for us.
Through Power Play Studios.
Through Power Play Studios,
amazing.
as well as he had Sunny Day Window sponsor this year. So
yeah,
Let's do a quick cheers, guys.
awesome. Cheers. Episode 5.
Episode 5 in the books.
Helping
Cold
the
beer,
veteran.
iced tea.
I love it.
Oh my
along
gosh,
those
that's
lines, I mean,
amazing.
you sponsored this year as well.
I'm so excited to like be able to do this finally. You know, I wasn't able to in my last couple of years, and I always was like, I just want to sponsor so bad, but finally I just have enough that we can do that
And we
with
appreciate
the business.
it
And I'm just
there's a long way.
there's something about you, and Chris and I talk about this a lot. There's a lot, like, we really value some people who are genuine, and you can tell like their heart is in the right spot. And I think from the first moment I met you at one of our connecting events, I was like, yeah, like you are who you are. You're not anybody else. You're not trying to be anybody else, but you're doing things for the right reasons. You can just tell. Like, I really appreciate when you can see somebody's living in their purpose and who they're meant to be. And as probably devastating as I can imagine it was when you were like, I can't do what I wanted to do. Just a phenomenal, like, I don't know, like,
There's a purpose bit.
like, thank God that like that happened to you, because look at the impact you'll be able to have otherwise, and a greater impact than you would have probably ever imagined you could have had.
And I would
right?
agree with it. Is I had the vision of I'll be in the Army forever. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And now I look back at it and I was like, okay, I'm coming up on 10 years medically retired this year. Well, no, medically retired 10 years next year.
Okay.
I am, where are we at? The 15th? So 16th. So I'm actually, the 22nd is my 10-year anniversary of what we consider in the military to be my alive day. Wow. That is the day that I lost my life and had to be brought back medically.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming up on 10 years of this new life that I didn't ever envision having. I didn't do.
Sure.
And coming into this now, I realize everything does happen for a reason. There's a purpose behind everything. And
Totally.
everyone's background is different. Everyone's purpose is different. Well, I have a 14-year-old daughter.
Mhm.
She would have never known what any of this could be
Sure.
if I hadn't had the things happen to me that put me down this path.
Right.
But at 14, she now understands bigger purposes, what happens to veterans, why care isn't where it is. She can see through what the media will tell you and see, we need to be better.
Right.
And things like that.
Yeah.
And a prime example of that is last year and this year, she walks the last day with me. She'll do the total of the last 15 miles with us.
That's awesome.
Because she feels like she needs to be a part of.
Yeah.
There is something and I need to do something to help as well.
That's amazing.
Isn't it crazy how kids form those opinions at such a young age? My wife read something recently that said kids form the majority of their financial beliefs about how money should be handled. Obviously, they get those impressions from their family by age 7.
Mhm.
And I was like, wait, what?
Wow.
And our daughter's turning 7 this year. So we're talking about things like,
oh,
you know,
shoot.
yeah, we're behind the
We
eight
have a
ball.
lot
And we're
we gotta
probably
figure out.
not, but you know, as a
No,
parent, you always
right.
want to try to stay ahead of those things.
Yeah.
So your daughter's probably the one going up to parents and being like, oh no, don't touch that dog. It has a vest on.
Yeah.
Because she's educated on those things. Just think about what she's going to do just in her role in society as she goes out there having the education a lot of people aren't getting until they're at least in their mid-20s.
Absolutely.
She has that at sort of a very formative age.
She's been able to go through and adapt and have those educations. And she realizes that we do a lot with the therapy dogs that work for Castle Rock Police Department and Douglas County Sheriff's Department. And so when she sees the dogs in the schools or out in the community, she knows them. She's helped me pick some of them from where they come from.
That's amazing.
And I have a picture of her 2 years ago at 12 years old, and this goofy curly-headed kid with a black lab puppy. And she brought that dog home. She helped pick. And that dog now works for the community response team for Castle Rock Police Department. And he is the state of Colorado's first ever law enforcement therapy go out in the community working dog.
Wow.
So he's a mental health response dog, not a school dog. So in this town, if you called 911 for a mental health emergency, it's not just officers. It's an officer, a social worker, and the dog.
It's a different approach.
Disarming, I feel like. Right? Like it's not as, it just helps somebody
So
just
different.
probably cut through a lot.
It de-escalates so
Yes.
fast, and
Yeah,
they're able to
fast.
get through to people in that.
That's amazing.
A friend of mine works as a police officer in Denver. And he said one of the hardest things it is to learn is to figure out as a police officer, how do you de-escalate?
Correct.
Especially when they are trained to engage. He's muscular, he's athletic, he wears a mustache. Everything about him, right, is kind of like that Rottweiler. It's, I don't know if that's somebody I want to approach. And when he's dealing with people that are not doing the right things, his first directive is to try to figure out how he can de-escalate that.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to do. And I would imagine if somebody's coming up with a dog, it just changes the conversation about how you're engaging.
Yeah. They've seen it make a dramatic difference. And I mean, really, for me, it started all the way back in the hospital. The power of the dog became known. Not everyone knows this about my past, and I have always been public about it. Since creating P.A.W.S and having to learn how to be the face of an organization when I never wanted to be, and tell your story, I had a dog prevent my own suicide attempts. I had put a gun to my head, and the dog forced my arm down and wouldn't let me pick it back up. And when I realized the power of what the dogs could do, that was really the moment that the switch flipped for me, and it was like, we're going down this path. We're doing this. And now we've dedicated where P.A.W.S is, service dogs. We're therapy dogs in law enforcement. We do recreational therapy opportunities for veterans. We do peer mentorship, veteran meetups once a month, where just come out and be with other veterans and talk the way you want to talk.
Super cool.
And not feel judged because a random person who doesn't see the world the same way as you is going to question on how you talk about things. And we've seen that it's made a drastic difference. We have letters from veterans, spouses, kids. You saved my husband. You saved my wife. You saved my dad. All of these things come through to the point where our realm is reaching broader than what we ever could have thought it could. And that's really the goal.
That's phenomenal. So I'd like to go back to the Ruck March because I'm really curious. I know the first time it was probably a couple of years ago that I heard you talk about it, and you're like, we're going to give veterans a dog for free, and several veterans, not just one or two, right? Can you explain a little bit more about, I have so many questions about this. One, like, how do you pick the veterans? 2, I think what most people don't realize, like you talked about Gunner being like a $50,000 worth of training. But how much, like,
Hell of a napper too.
yeah, exactly. Right.
He's pretty good.
So am I.
Yeah.
Really
And
good.
you didn't have to be trained.
Didn't have to be trained. I'm
No.
just naturally good at that.
It's kind of the opposite for you. We have to get you out of the
Thanks,
nest.
buddy.
Yeah. But really, like, there's so much that goes into that. So you talk a little bit about what you really are giving these veterans as you give them the dog, not only from like the monetary standpoint and the time you put in, but what else does that really do for them?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, really, when it comes down to the Ruck March, this being the 5th year, it always gets a little bit bigger. At the finale, we tend to have a couple surprises up our sleeves.
Cool.
So this year alone, there will be at least one therapy dog presented. There'll be one service dog presented, and I may or may not be having to withhold some more in that.
Okay.
But we will be giving dogs to veterans at the finale and things like that.
That'll be at 105.
At 105
So
West,
that'll be
Saturday the
25th. 24th?
24th.
Okay, 24th.
Saturday the 24th. We cross the finish line approximately 1 p.m.
Mhm.
So we tell everyone you need to be there by noon. The parking lot will be full.
It's gonna get nuts.
You will be walking down the street.
Hold on real quick. Taylor, did you hear that? It's 1 p.m., buddy.
That's right.
Get yourself moving.
He's gonna be dead at Jellystone.
He's like, I'm so
I'm
done.
just gonna stay in the pool, guys.
It is very a mission-oriented timeline, specifically on the last day,
Sure.
but really on all of the days. But when we go through and we give these dogs away, I mean, the veterinary care, the training costs, these dogs are worth $25,000 when we hand them off.
I couldn't believe that.
Crazy.
$25,000.
$25,000.
Yeah, right.
And really, a lot of times when it comes through is the veteran has to go through and do some of the work with us. So in order to meet those timelines of 3-6 months to give you a dog, the dog's not finished when you get it. Now.
So now you have more work on the back
he
end.
It's kind of like they're
18
graduating together.
Yeah. So each one of these dogs takes a year and a half to go through the program. So if I give you a dog at 6 months, you have a foundation, but the reality is you and I are going to work together for the next year and a half. It's giving you purpose. It's giving you independence. It's giving you clarity on how you need to monitor your emotions. You have to relearn patience. You have to relearn communication. And ultimately that affects your family. That affects your kids. The ability to go through and change those things is important.
Yeah.
Because when we come through, I'm very short fused sometimes, but then the dog looks at me and I'm like, okay, cool.
He's like your accountability buddy. Yeah.
They won't
That's
hold
awesome.
you accountable.
Yeah.
So we've seen it change the lifestyle. We've seen it change the abilities of the veteran. It's changed families. We had a wife literally reach out to us 6 months ago and say, I was going to divorce his ass.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's just where we were. It wasn't safe. And now that the dog is here,
It's real life. It's realities of
she's like, I'm completely in. I see my husband again.
wow.
And those are the things you want to have.
Yeah.
So when we go through and we do it, there's a full realm of it. And, you know, it's not always a dog for someone. Someone, it might just be coming out and having conversations.
Sure.
This summer, we're doing a camping retreat with veterans, and we're going to go out to just south of Leadville and have 12, 15 veterans all go camping. And you're just around other veterans for 3 days. And we'll have, you know, water activities and hiking activities and yoga activities and different opportunities for people to find new purposes and new outlets that aren't just the same old therapy. We're a big proponent of not everyone is going to get something from sit in a room and talk to somebody, especially sit in a room and talk to someone who didn't serve or never deployed, who's never had to take life.
No shared experience or anything around that. Yeah.
Most of the time in the VA, unfortunately, they're not people who have served and have lost people and taken life. So they don't understand it. They have the medical background to say, I have this piece of paper that says, I care and I can help you. It doesn't cut it in most situations. But when we get out and you're sitting around a fire and guys are just hanging out around at night, you see people open up and tell their stories and let that come off of the shoulders. Let the weight go of, I've been holding this in for 15 years, 10 years. And the development in the men and women who come out and do this with us, it's drastic. And then they go home and they have that release. And so it's more than just a dog. There's a lot of resources that come out there, but this specific event with the Ruck March, the sole purpose of this is mental health awareness, PTSD awareness, and suicide prevention. That's where all of the funding goes, where everything goes in. And that's our whole mission, why we're going to go and walk all this distance. And physically, you know, it's damaging on the body and the emotional and the mental toll that goes into it.
I can't imagine. I mean, I would,
But
I
it's
would,
a lot.
I wouldn't make it half
the day.
You wouldn't.
half the first
Yeah,
day.
you wouldn't.
You wouldn't either.
Might surprise you. Might surprise you. You never know.
I mean,
Never
you're
know.
talking.
I mean, I need a nap though.
Day one is 43 miles in 10 hours.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's go see. Start right now. We'll time you.
We'll begin.
See how you do.
Clock me. See when I come back.
And mind you, you also have to consider that when we do this, we're not wearing running comfortable shoes.
Because you got a full pack.
We're
right?
wearing combat boots, which
Okay.
is why, like, I'm wearing them now. I'm breaking them in.
Yeah.
You wear combat boots, and we have a full pack. Our packs typically weigh anywhere from 30 to 80 pounds.
Wow.
So it's
That's
not
phenomenal.
light. You're
Yeah.
you're pushing it, and then you've got to keep up with the pace. And I give credit to anyone who's willing to walk this walk and not just talk this walk,
100%.
because
Yeah.
every year we have people, hey, I want to do it with you next year. I'm absolutely in.
Oh, I bet.
Next year comes around, something came up,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
I changed my mind.
My couch hasn't been sat
I
on a
will
while.
just tell you, I will
there.
never volunteer for that because I know I wouldn't be able to handle it.
And we will be changing
And
the
I'm okay with
format of this in the
Yeah.
future to let more people be involved in a less
That would be
strenuous
cool.
way.
Yeah. yeah.
Um,
And like little chunks or something.
That's way to
like
get
that.
people to support it is to
Right.
feel like there's a way that they can be involved. And there's always different ways folks can get involved in stuff.
Absolutely.
You know, Michael, one of the things that people ask us a lot, friends that don't live in Castle Rock or that don't know about the podcast will say, well, what's the topic of your podcast? What's the subject matter? We were just talking about this morning.
Yeah.
And it's really simple. There isn't one. It's from Castle Rock, about Castle Rock, for Castle Rock. So one of the things that we like to ask everybody who's on here, because yes, a lot of people that are on our podcast are business owners.
Yeah.
They're involved in something, but even people that aren't business owners have different passions, things that they love about this community. There's a reason you chose
Right.
to live
Why you
here.
live here.
So,
Yeah.
From that perspective, I'm kind of curious, what's another business in Castle Rock that you not only really love and admire, but support yourself and just think's great?
Honestly, it's a long list for me.
Give us your top three.
Okay, so we're sitting in one Bucket List Tavern.
Yeah.
Since the moment they opened, they have been beyond accommodating for our nonprofit.
That's
You
awesome.
do training here with the dogs, don't
We
you?
will bring groups of 9 dogs in here,
Amazing.
and they'll be like, you can have the patio or you can have the front room. We'll just take tables in the bar, and
Yeah.
they don't ever question. They're more than accommodating.
That's
they
amazing.
want to support, and
Well, I remember even
plus
just
the
for
food
this,
and the drinks are amazing.
yeah,
So
just for this podcast, I was like, where do you train your dogs? He's like, everywhere. I'm like, well, where can we go?
If
And
we be
then-
more specific than everyone.
Yeah, exactly. It's like at my house, parks. And I was like, well, where do you go a lot? Because and this was like the perfect location for the Ruck March.
You didn't
March.
say it, but you were thinking, where can we go that has Wi-Fi?
Yeah, well, that's
Because we do need Wi-Fi to make all this happen.
right. But it was just like the perfect trifecta of, this is where you train, this is where we're going to be for the event you have coming up.
correct. This is
Uh,
the first night.
All
so.
this here in Castle Rock. Yeah, I'm very supportive.
So
So
you got bucket list.
It's a
Bucket
no-brainer.
list, honestly, we go a lot of places that are food related. My wife, she's been here a lot longer than I have, and she's very into, the beer scene and the breweries, and
okay.
so we spend a lot of time at 105
Nice.
and Iron Mule and places like that.
yeah,
But we've had a lot of local businesses that every year come back and support us. Future Capital Management has been the title sponsor of this Ruck March 2 years in a row without hesitation.
yeah,
That family that owns it, they also own the Montessori School of Castle Rock. And Montessori School sponsored our graduation last year as the title sponsor.
Can we share something that's probably not well known?
yes,
Despite what people think is his prickly personality, Justin Conkey has a massive heart.
100%.
Has a massive heart, and he backs that up by actually doing good
that's right.
with all the gifts that he's been given in life and that he's worked hard for.
Absolutely.
And I love hearing the fact that for the last 2 years they've been your title sponsor.
They step into everything, and they're always the first ones to volunteer to sponsor. And we appreciate things like that, because when you're in the nonprofit realm, one of the hardest things that I've had to, I guess, embrace is my job is begging.
Yeah.
To a
Right.
point, right?
Yeah,
When I
you
run
never know
all of
where
it,
it's going to come from.
I have to beg for sponsorships. I have
Sure.
to beg for donations. I have to create a lot of it. And yeah, there's sides of, okay, you run a business, you run a nonprofit, you have to run marketing, you have to do interviews, you have to go through and train the dogs, you've got to coordinate with local businesses and things that are out of state, and you've got to
Sure.
coordinate with the VA and government and everything. So when you have business owners that are willing to step up and consistently be like, I got your back, I love this, I'm going to make it work. Those are the people that make it where year round we can continue to operate, because if
Yeah.
we don't have those, it's really hard to continue funding this. At $25,000 a dog, you've got to spend $5,000-$10,000 to do recreational every
Sure.
time. I mean, say I do 2 recreationals and 4 dogs, I'm at $120,000 in expenses.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
Right.
It takes a village to be able to do this. And we get some help from local business owners. We get some help from other organizations and, the police departments and the sheriff's departments and things that want to be involved. But there's a lot of businesses that just are like that, where they get a personification of, well, they do well for themselves, so they must not be
Right.
as involved in the community. Justin's one of the people where very quickly it was, doesn't matter what I do.
It's a no-brainer.
It's how do I help others with it?
Yeah.
How do I use what I've done? And I embrace that because I base my business on that.
Totally.
My business doesn't pay my bills. My business is ultimately funding my nonprofit right now because the nonprofit needs more money.
Right.
I wish it would pay my bills. It'd be a whole lot easier to live in Castle Rock, but that's not how that works.
Right.
So having business owners in places that are willing to do that, it really makes a difference for us.
I think 2 things you'll find with successful people. Number 1 is they want to help other people, meaning they want to kind of like, here's how I was successful. I'd love to share with you my secrets of success. Number 2, in that same vein of generosity, they're typically very generous when they have received gifts. They want to give a lot of those gifts away.
Correct.
And it's amazing. I was using this analogy. I was speaking to a group yesterday, and a young man came up and asked me questions, how I got into hospitality and speaking, what I do. And I use an analogy, right? And I have no problem talking about church. Brian and I go to the same church. It's the idea of like, if I want to receive, but I'm busy doing it with a closed hand, like if I can't let it go, my hand's also not open to receive gifts back. It's a like a wonderful, beautiful, cyclical process. But the hardest part for some people to do is that, like, okay, I'm going to open my hand and I'm going to let something go. And then they're kind of amazed or surprised when somebody comes back and kind of blesses their life or blesses their business. I think successful people typically have a lot of those traits.
Yeah, it really is. And we see it all the time where the people who get the most out of life are also the people who give the most out of life.
Totally.
And, I go from a perspective of, in our family lifestyle, we skate by in Douglas County as far as, can we pay the bills? Can we stay here for a long period of time?
Yeah.
The financial aspects, it's a lot.
Sure.
But when it comes down to it, I'm trying to teach my daughter that there's a bigger purpose than just money that you make in your life.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
And
what you have, and
if you can help someone,
Status.
then it's worth it.
Yeah.
And we see it all the time where we went out, I would say, I think she was 13. We went out shopping somewhere and I had just said, okay, you can have $20. You can go get whatever you want. And she looked around and she said, I don't want anything in here. And I said, you don't want anything? You've been asking for at least a dozen of these things.
Right.
And she said, not in here. And I said, okay. And we walked outside and she gave the $20 to a homeless veteran who happened to be outside. And I said, did you know you were going to do that inside? And she said, honestly, I looked around the store and I remembered him being out there when we walked in.
Yeah.
And that was a better purpose for the $20. Those are the moments where I'm like, I'm not screwing up as a parent.
No, exactly.
I can struggle all day financially. I can, bend over backwards to put you through sports or run a nonprofit and teach you business and help you manage bills. But at the end of the day, if I can teach you how to not be a crappy person, then everything is worth it, regardless of what we have to do to make it happen.
Kind of the measure of parenting. You kind of mentioned, and these sort of tie in. We were talking about like, favorite businesses in Castle Rock. Are those places that are places we kind of like find you hanging out? Or like, what are the activities that you and your family do? You mentioned your daughter's involved in volleyball.
Yeah.
So what are some of the, you're like, no, that's it. That's what we do, Chris.
That's like my life.
Dogs and volleyball. We're there. If we can teach Gunner to bring back a volleyball. He's like, my mouth, I'm not a snake. I can't open it that far. Keep putting holes in it.
It's ironic. We will go out to those places, but we don't get to go out as much as we would like to because of things like, so my daughter's volleyball is club. It's not like you play at school for 3 months and you're done.
Right.
We travel around the country. We were in Atlanta 3 weeks ago. We were in Salt Lake last weekend. We have tournaments all across the country, and it's time consuming.
Yeah.
It's multiple nights a week. We're in practice until 9:30 at night. Then you come home and we're at a tournament every weekend.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into it, both from a financial aspect, but also a time aspect. And we try and focus our time on that. But in free time, we do enjoy camping. I take teaching my daughter how to snowboard now. The last 2 years, we've gone out and done that. We only get like 1 day a year because of volleyball. But we go and do it.
It's a time commitment to get up there.
It is. But we do a lot of things in the community where we'll go a lot of, Castle Rock has our Friday nights in Festival Park, and we'll do a lot of those.
Like the jazz down there.
Yeah.
So much fun.
And
Or movies
First
and
Fridays,
Yes.
and different events that go out. We try and stay as involved in the community as we can ultimately be. Is really what that is. And along those lines, we never thought we'd be this
Thank you so much.
intertwined in the community as we are.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
But it's a community that kind of, I don't want to say it makes it easy, right? Anything worth doing is worth working for. Thank you so
Correct.
much. But it's a community that actually kind of makes that possible. When my wife and I moved from Centennial, we were looking for community.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that my measure of community was going to be like being in the grocery store, being in Cough 33 or Lost Coffee or Crowfoot,
Yes.
and always running into people that we know. And before we started doing this podcast together, Brian and I probably would see each other like, 3 or 4 times a month just at Cough 33 because we both did meetings there because we loved it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, that's what, sparks relationships. And I told people like, well, why did you want to do the podcast with Brian? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, we weren't best friends. I was like, pretty close though. I was like, but there was a connection there that was really, it was real.
Yeah.
You said earlier, it was real and it was genuine.
Right.
And I think part of what really drew me to the relationship with Brian was the fact that this is a guy that I'd spent a lot of time around through church things and connecting over coffee and coffee. Like, I don't think I've ever seen him have a bad day. Now, that's not realistic. He probably does.
Yeah. Right.
But the way in which he presented himself showed me the fact that like the bad days don't really ever win because he's finding a way to make the good out of everything.
100%. And, I've made some of my best friends out here in Castle Rock.
Totally.
I met my wife here in Castle Rock. Between the two of us, we know everyone, so we can no longer really go on dates
anywhere.
in this town anymore.
They find you.
Because people find us and we go everywhere, and I'm obviously known with the dogs everywhere.
Pet Gunner, and you're like, leave the dog alone.
So
You wear a vest so nobody touches it.
we have actually
Do not touch.
Exactly.
I have a vest that says dog won't bite, but handler will.
Oh, that's fabulous.
love it.
But
Now, does your daughter get to, because my kids, I finally realized I arrived of knowing a lot of people in town when they're like, can you stop talking to people?
my
everywhere
daughter
we go?
says it all the time.
Yeah.
She's like, everybody. And because of what we do with a prime example, we go out, everyone's talking to me. She's like, wow, he really does know everybody. But at the same time, settle, thank you. We also have we do all the school resource therapy dogs for Castle Rock Police Department.
right.
We do a lot of the certifications. So when she goes to school, she sees the dog, she knows the dog.
Yeah.
She knows that the
love
officers know me. So next year is her freshman year at Castleview.
Oh, right.
And she already knows that if
She's
she gets in trouble, it's not calling mom. It's going to be the
That's gonna
resource
be-
officer texting me and
What's
be like,
your
"Hey,
daughter's
come to
name?"
school." Maylee.
So, Maylee or Maylene?
Maylee.
Maylee is like, don't call my dad. Call the police.
Right, exactly.
Like, please don't call my dad.
Anybody else.
The irony is it's going to be the same thing. So it's fine.
Anything.
But we go
Like, dang it,
through that.
Dad, you're too connected. I can't
And
get away with anything.
It's kind of gotten to that point where,
Yeah.
it is. It's
That's
very
amazing.
much so a connection factor.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm very proud of are the way we've been able to involve ourselves with the community and find those connections, and all the way to the point where it was never intended. It was never supposed to be where I'm going to run a business here. I'm going to run a nonprofit here. It's about me. Like, it's not. It's about
But it
what
was
we can
meant to
do to
be,
help the
like-
community.
Yeah.
And ironically, this past week, I received a letter in the mail, and completely off the wall, had no idea about it. And I was out of town. So my wife opened it and she was like, hey, you have something, and it's from the town of Castle Rock and the Castle Rock Police Department. It's on the counter when you come home. And in my head, my first thought was, did you just commit mail fraud? But the second
Makes
part,
me feel better. My wife and I open each other's mail all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We do too.
Absolutely.
I came
You
home.
open my wife's mail?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
So weird.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
wouldn't tell me what it was. So I came home and I opened it up. It turns out that I have been asked to attend the Castle Rock Police Department's annual award ceremony in May because of the fact that I was selected from the town to receive the Citizen Commendation Award from the police department in the town. And I knew nothing about it.
Wow. Just the two of us.
Michael,
Come on now.
That's
Let's do this.
Seriously, that's amazing.
Congratulations, man.
It's
Yeah.
the
Well
police-
deserved.
The police in the town are
Yeah.
were selected. And I didn't know anything about it.
I didn't know that it existed.
I didn't. And so I was like,
yeah.
technically I'm busy on that day because my daughter has a volleyball tournament. But I was like, she's got the team, she's got the family. I can leave for a couple hours and go do this
Totally. Yeah.
because it's about giving back to the community. And like you said, okay, you open the hand and you give out, and sometimes things come back. The award, for me in the military, that's an attaboy. That's a good job.
It's not about the award.
It's not about the
necessarily,
award,
Yeah.
but it is nice to see that the community has circled around our organization and said, we see the value, we see the good,
Totally.
and we're going to embrace it also.
100%. I love that.
All right. So one question to kind of like to close out the conversation. You've shared a lot, probably more intimate details about your life and your business than most people do. But is there something that's a secret about you? Something that most people don't know? Maybe it's a passion, other than volleyball and dogs, which we've
That's
covered.
right.
Maybe it's a passion, but just a secret about you that you wouldn't mind sharing with the folks that are watching this episode.
I would say that honestly, most of my life is a secret. In reality, in a mindset from post-traumatic stress, I don't like going out in community. I don't like public speaking. I don't like people knowing what's going on in my life.
Sure.
But from that realm, I've kind of learned to embrace a lot of it from the nonprofit spectrum, where I've now done public speaking engagements in front of 10,000 people. I've done engagements where you fly around the country in order to do these, and I've testified in front of Congress. And I would say one thing that a lot of people don't know about me is that side of, it's not local to this. I push these things for veteran relations and resources across the country, where I've testified in front of Congress. I've met four presidents that are still alive.
Wow.
I've had one-to-one conversations with 3 of them.
That is a good secret.
I try and
no
not
idea.
The
use
fourth
them.
one he met, by the way, and they were like, "Do you want to talk to the president?" He's like, "No, I'm good."
There's one where I did not engage in the conversation, and it was my choice.
That doesn't surprise me at all. That does not surprise me at all.
I've had, I would say, I met one where it was very, candid. I met one that it was very personal, to the point where he actually told his Secret Service staff, "I'm not done here. I'm going to finish my conversation." I met one in the hospital while I was at Walter Reed, and it was very quick and candid.
Okay.
We had a conversation, but it was brief.
Yeah.
And I had one where I'm a very genuine person, and if I don't feel like it's genuine, I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah.
Right.
And it felt more like it was a photo op than it was genuine. And in that moment, I was like, "Thank you, sir. Appreciate what you do. I have things to do."
We're good.
And I moved on. And that's just how it had to be.
Yeah.
But I have had one who was genuine enough to, like you said, tell their staff, no, I'm not done here. We're going to finish this conversation.
Wow.
And I will tell you this, of the presidents I've met, 2 of them were while I had a dog with me. He is the only person of any political stature who has ever asked, "Can I pet the dog?" Everyone else just assumed that they were entitled.
Did it.
And that they just did it. And in my mindset, I was like, I have so much more respect for you now than I would have before that.
For sure.
Regardless of your political affiliation, your policies, I'm a firm believer that there's a genuine person inside of everyone.
Sure.
What you do with your decisions is up to you, but that's how I'm going to judge you, is what you do with your life decisions and how you handle things. And that doesn't have to be what you do in front of the camera. That could be what you do in regular life.
Right.
But when you have those genuine people who are like, no, I don't care what my schedule says, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Those are the people where I was I have a lot more
trust there. Yeah. 100%. I love that.
Absolutely.
Well,
Go ahead. No, please.
I was going to say, one of the things I want to make sure anybody watching, thank you for staying, because this is it's been a phenomenal conversation.
Amazing conversation.
How can people help you, from the Ruck March, but also to your nonprofit? Like, how can they get involved if they want to?
We're going to list links in all the notes.
For sure. We're going to put all that there, but would love to, especially because your event's coming up.
Yep.
That's the immediate thing. But then beyond that, how can anybody get involved and support you?
So ConnorsK9-PAWS.org is our website. We also have, Give Butter links and things for fundraising sites.
Cool.
When it comes to the Ruck March, we always need donors. We always need sponsors. But honestly, we need attendees.
Okay.
Last year's finale, we had over 400 people at 105 West in a single given time.
Wow.
If the fire department and the police department hadn't done our escort in, we probably would have been well over coat. But they didn't care because we were inside, we're outside. There's a bigger purpose here.
Gotcha.
And we're being safe about it, obviously.
Sure.
But we want people to understand, if you watch this podcast, you're going to hear me talk about things.
Yeah.
You're going to hear my story. You're going to hear how we help. If you come to our events, you're going to see how we help. And that's the bigger factor.
I love that. Yeah.
Come
again,
out.
105 Bucket List.
Bucket List on the 21st.
What's the brewery and monument? Because I missed that.
Red Leg Brewing Company.
Red Leg.
In Colorado Springs.
Okay, so some sort of pirate theme.
It's an artillery. When you're in artillery, you're called Red Leg.
Okay.
It's an Army-based brewery in Colorado Springs.
Then Jellystone Campground, which we know, which is right off the interstate down in Monument.
And then
wrap up at 105, which is somewhere around here in Castle Rock.
Right down the street.
Somewhere that way.
That way.
And 105 has hosted the finale the last several years. And Eric has been phenomenal with us. He's a veteran himself, and he understands, I'm going to make your staff stressed. I'm going to make them overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And they've had some of their best days of the year when we finished the ruck there.
Amazing.
It's passion.
I love it.
People come out for a bigger purpose. We have the news and the media. And, like I said, law enforcement escorts in, and we have finish lines, and we have all of these things. And then it's like you get to give away the dog. And 105 has gone as far as last year they let me brew a beer at 105 West.
Oh, cool.
And it was called P.A.W.S IPA.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I never even asked to be able to recreate that for this year.
Yeah.
And 105 is the one who reached out to me and said, it's on the schedule. We have the recipe that you did. We're redoing it. It's been brewed. When it comes to time to release this, it'll be ready for the entire month of May. And going as far as saying, so Bucket List has a 105 beer on tap.
Yeah.
They're a supporter. They have community connection that we're talking about, right? So when you come to Bucket List on the 21st, you can get P.A.W.S IPA here at Bucket List, even though the only place it will really be available is at 105.
Yeah.
So having those community connections is big, but the
cool.
biggest way we want people to come out is support the events, come out to them. We've got some really insane auction items this year that are going to drive the value through the roof.
Cool. That's awesome.
I mean, it's Colorado.
Right.
We finally have a football team that doesn't tank every
Completely
year,
suck.
and everybody are starting to get some motivation back. The Broncos sent us 7 signed jerseys from different players, courtesy of the new quarterback, Bo Nix.
Oh,
he took care of it.
That's amazing.
It's
He
weird
lives
there
right
wasn't
over there.
He's in Castle Pines.
It's weird there wasn't a Russell Wilson jersey there.
Yeah.
It's odd. Anyway, moving on. Moving on.
We want winners.
Thanks. My Giants picked up Russell Wilson. I was like,
I'm a Patriots fan growing up in Boston, so I get it. But it's nice to be able to see the community and the state come out and support these things.
100%.
And so we've got a lot of items that are really cool and different things that are going to motivate. But we'd really like to see the community come out and overwhelm these businesses that are stepping in. It's not always about us. Like, come to Bucket List on the 21st. They're opening up for us. They're having the event here. Let's swamp them. Let's make their staff overwhelmed. Let's take care of the businesses that are taking care of the nonprofits in this community.
Love it. That's phenomenal. Yeah, and we will put all the links and
Everything.
everything so you can go figure out. Now, can people follow along on socials and things like that as well? Okay.
So social media, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. And I'll send you a link that you can use as well, but it will be on our website. This year, you can actually GPS track us on the
Oh, sweet.
amazing.
So
I was
you'll
wondering
be able
how
to go on
people
your
can track
phone
where you're
and
at.
see where we are at.
Yeah.
Now, we are anticipating that there will be at least 2 stretches where we might have some service issues out in the mountains as we're coming around.
Sure.
But other than that, you'll be able to know where we're at. And, if you look at it and you say, hey, they're coming through Littleton, down through Howlands Ranch, and we've had people pull off the side of the road in Howlands Ranch and be like, we're tracking you. We want to say hi.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cheer you on. Things like that go a long way. So absolutely, we want
You
people
could use a little encouragement along the way, I would imagine.
a lot. I had
That's
2
awesome.
knee surgeries this year after last year's event because I tore some things. And
So
ironically,
you already have those scheduled for this year too?
So I
a couple surgeries?
I had the surgeries. I got cleared, and 2 days later, I started training for this year.
Oh,
So
my
there's a lot
goodness.
of motivation that goes into that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, Michael, after somebody's on our podcast, they get the unique nickname of being a Castle Rock insider. So you're now officially, Brian has to dub you.
Yeah,
You're officially a Castle Rock
Gunner.
insider, and Gunner.
Yeah,
Gunner's a
did a
Castle Rock
phenomenal
insider as
job.
well.
Yeah.
Did a really great job. What a well-behaved dog. Michael, thanks for just spending time with us today and
Yeah.
telling us not only about P.A.W.S, but also just about you and your story. It's been so insightful and so fun just to hear a little bit more about you. And we're excited for what viewers will get out of the episode, what they'll hear about it, and an opportunity for them to continue to track and also support your organization.
I truly appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for having us out here in order to spread the word about what we do and how people can get involved and support.
Totally. Yeah, we're very excited to put this one out there. We'll pack all these places out for sure. All of you who are a Castle Rock insider as well, be sure you follow what Connor's doing, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. That brings us to the end of another episode and a great conversation.
We hope you enjoyed getting to learn more about our community and the people of our town.
If you want to become a Castle Rock insider, all you have to do is like that video that you just watched and go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We're also on all the social media channels. You can find us there or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time inside Castle Rock.